Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Joe Gould. I'm here with Adam Winters, and we're looking at another Ernest flick tonight. Ernest Goes to Camp, 1987.
It's not raining where I'm at, and I'm thankful for that.
Okay. It's not raining here either. It's cold, though.
It'd be snowing if it was. Coming down in ice.
Yeah, we got a few flurries last night. Quite blizzard weather. Windy, cold, dusting.
Yeah.
Tennessee blizzard, man. Tennessee blizzard. Dark at 4:30. Lame.
I prefer standard time over savings time myself. I think we should go standard time all year round, even if it is darker earlier.
I want the sun out late. I want a 9:30 sunset.
So you're in favor of savings time then? Or saving. I always forget if there's an S at the end of that. Saving time. Savings.
I'm in favor of saving time, saving the light, and not driving in the dark.
Yeah, it can be rough, no doubt about it. A lot of vehicles in this movie. Surprising for a camp film. Vehicle-based humor.
Some of it was just one vehicle over and over again.
A lot was a bus, though, and several construction equipment, which I believe was provided by the Hardaway Construction Company Incorporated, according to the credits.
Interesting credit sequence. They listed the cast last.
After it was about I thought it was about midway on the cast, because there was a lot after the cast. I saw it. Music. A lot of original music in this movie. Maybe more to say about that later.
Gotta save money.
I really like it, though. That may be why the music alone is why a lot of people consider this their favorite Ernest movie. It is not mine, but I can understand the argument for that.
I feel like this movie was, you could tell they're getting their sea legs underneath them for how to make an Ernest movie and not a set of 25 continuous commercials. Which is what this movie felt like, was like 25 different skits loosely held together by a plot.
Something about the camera angles. There's a lot of scenes where it's just a set camera, and it has a lot in the shot, so you get all your characters, and Ernest just kind of walks up from the background. It does have the feel of a lot of those Hey Vern spots. So this was a film on location. Probably didn't use a whole lot of constructed sets. Is that your impression of this?
Well, they knocked down 2 cabins or so towards the end. So I would imagine those were the only fake buildings. I don't know if they would have used those buildings for the actual filming, though.
They knocked over a whole Coke machine, too. It looked like a real Coke machine.
I'm sure it was probably cheaper to use a real Coke machine than it is to use a fake one.
You got a point there. I'm sure they had no trouble getting the Coke, although I don't remember Coca-Cola being synced in the credits, so that's another question.
I think he had a regional contract with Coca-Cola over, I don't know if it was free publicity to keep doing commercials or what.
That's fair. A lot of Coca-Cola in the Ernest movies, if you think about it. Just little things pushing the Coca-Cola product.
So I was wondering, for most of the movie, where they spent the $3.5 million.
The music. The music has some bangers on it. No doubt. There's a whole lot of demolition in this movie. You can call it special effects, but pyrotechnics, that did not look cheap to me. I know it's not the most expensive thing to blow something up, but...
So I've long wondered why movies haven't done this before, but I noticed in this one, so there's this blue and white truck. And as part of the explosions, it gets blown up at least 3 times. So they filmed blowing this truck up from different camera angles and just reused the different angles. I like it.
Yeah.
They probably could have picked a truck that was less obvious, like maybe one of the actual construction trucks and not a random blue and white one.
Right.
Maybe it's stock footage.
It meshes together well. I assumed they blew stuff up with extras on the set.
Yeah, I think so, because most of those, not the truck scene, but most of them included the construction vehicles with their logo.
Yeah. What's the construction worker, or the head guy? Kramer?
Crater.
Crater.
Play on words.
Is that a pun? Because he's...
making craters.
Yeah, because he wants... Is that a made-up mineral for the space program? I don't remember the name of it. Gravitron or something?
Well, it's petrocite. But I thought they were saying petricide the entire movie. So I thought it was just being silly.
Is petricite a real or made up thing? I don't know.
Let me pull up the Google machine.
Petricite. I don't remember that from the periodic table of elements. Minerals, though. Yeah, minerals.
It's an online tool.
Oh.
Pyrocite is a word. It's a rock with colors. But no, I don't think petrocite is anything.
So add that to MIAC of the fictional things that exist in the Ernest universe.
Yeah.
The space program wants it, and it's very lucrative, and Crater wants to give it to him in mass.
Yep, but Chief St. Cloud ain't going along with it.
Well, to what degree does he fully understand in this movie? He just says he wants the camp to be there. He doesn't want anybody else taking it away, is his thing.
Well, I think Nurse St. Cloud, his granddaughter, has had lengthy conversations with him. So apparently he's never met old Crater, though.
No.
Which is why that conversation goes the direction it does. Getting the cart before the horse, though. So it's an odd movie. It starts as a flashback. Go ahead.
Kind of has two plots to it up until about the last 30 minutes. Then you get the second plot. You had one plot trying to help the boys fit in, and then everything shifts when Crater makes his coup. But yeah, you go ahead. That's what you were saying.
Yeah, so we get a flashback, hundreds or centuries ago, whatever it was. You have a young Indian warrior, Native American warrior, and he's some kind of initiation, and he's tied up to this cross-like symbol.
It's like a Batman death trap, is what it reminds me of.
Yeah. Very Riddler-esque. It's not so much Joker, but Riddler. Yeah. And then, you have these other Native Americans are throwing weapons at this warrior who's tied to this thing. And one of them was a sword. That's
well, there's the blade.
Yeah. See, the knife. They call it the blade, the rock, and was it the arrow?
Yeah, the arrow. So the rock is more or less a tomahawk, I think. So it's a stone fashioned with the
basically an axe. And then so they throw the sword, the axe, and they shoot the arrow, and none of them hit the guy. So apparently he wins the game.
I don't know. Would you rather do that or Russian roulette?
Well, and apparently the only reason you're not hit is because you're brave and not moving.
Well, there's three things, each one of them, right? You want to recite the oath, which I think comes later in the movie in the campfire scene. But are we getting into that yet?
Well, we can skip ahead. It's an Ernest movie. I don't feel too bad about this. Just got to find my quote. All right, here we go. All right, so here's the story. I spoke it to my phone as the chief was telling the story, being translated by his granddaughter. I speak to the young braves so that they may know the old ways. I speak to them so that they may know that this ground holds the spirit to the past. When a young brave was ready to become a warrior, he was here. It was here that he was called by the wise men. If he had faith in the Great One, the knife would not cut him if he had courage. True courage. The rock would not break him if the brave was pure of heart. Always pure of heart in these movies.
Yeah.
The arrow could not attack him or attach him.
Would not catch him.
And then
arrow would not catch him.
There we go.
There it is.
Voice to text right there. The arrow could not catch him, and then he would become a warrior as someday you will. And that was called the ceremony of the blade, the stone, and the arrow. And then Ernest points out that in our culture, this would be paper, rock, scissors.
Which is not that far off, surprisingly, if you think about it. The blade of paper, which cuts.
Ernest always has the pure heart, or heart of a child in these movies.
Indeed.
They go to the present, and we see Ernest, who's working as basically the maintenance man at a campsite. So he does everything. And he really wants to be a camp counselor, but the staff there just, they don't see it happening. He messes things up a lot, shockingly. But it works out that there's another group of students who have not come to the camp yet, but they're going to be coming. The second chancers. And basically, they're kid criminals, allegedly. And ultimately, these juvenile delinquents break the leg of their counselor, and Ernest gets a shot at being a camp counselor. He's going to take over that position.
We should defend the juveniles here a little bit. That camp counselor kind of had it coming, though. You're talking about when they were out on the docks, and he was up in his lifeguard chair.
Well, all these counselors had it coming, and all the campers, too.
Tell you what, Jason Voorhees, I don't know if he makes exceptions for non-sexual deviancy, but I guess he probably does in a few cases. He would have a field day on these counselors.
Oh, goodness. We need an Ernest Jason crossover.
Make it happen in stop motion.
Stop motion or graphic novel. I'll take either. But yes, maybe it'd be the case that Ernest can die over and over again, but just keeps coming back in the stop motion world.
That's how you bring Dr. Otto into it, too.
There you go. Yeah. So the ending factor is there's this little runt kid, Moose Jones, who's thrown into the lake by the counselor Stennis as more of a you need to learn how to swim kind of training session.
Ugh.
And he's rescued by Ernest. And then the boys get back at Stennis by toppling his perch, he's a lifeguard, into the lake, where he breaks his leg off screen.
It's a little surprising that I guess he must have got it tangled on something. I kind of wonder how that went about, but Well,
Yeah, there was not a corner they would not cut for this budget.
he's written out of the movie pretty quick, and then we get two more counselors who I don't remember their names at all, but they show up later in the movie. They have a hero turn, so to speak.
Well, I didn't think those were the counselors. I thought those were the two mean kids.
Oh, I thought they had counselor shirts on. I can't tell you one way or the other because I don't remember their names.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. The head guy's name is Tipton.
Tipton? Huh.
So one other thought about these delinquents, there's 6 of them. So when they first show these kids, they look like middle class dorks with sunglasses.
They do.
They did not dress any of them like delinquents. Maybe one.
They're Karate Kid villains. Let's be honest here.
Might be was that Kid Ninja movie?
Three ninjas? Are you saying about
3 ninjas? I think they're more 3 ninjas.
They
villains.
all have funky sunglasses, and they have even though it's the 80s, I feel like they have 90s clothing on. One of the kids is like
they
a
have
Hawaiian
jackets and
shirt.
ties.
Yeah, there's some very loose ties. One kid has
like
a
a Camp
Hawaiian
Mafia.
shirt, bare-chested. One kid has a fatigue on, like military. Okay, let me point out the kid who's named Crutchfield, and I don't remember what he wears. He's played by Scott Menville, who became a very accomplished voice actor over the years. Did a lot of the DC animated superhero shows.
Okay.
That's the only name I recognized of all the kids. Okay, the warden at the boys' school, remind me of her name. It's Doris from Dr. Otto.
Oh,
Janet?
I don't remember. I didn't make that connection until you just said that, even though you
That's
told me
her.
last week.
Pretty sure it's her.
No, it looks like her.
So we've not yet seen an Ernest movie that she wasn't in. Did we have any cameo by the guy who plays Bobby in later movies? Was he cameoing in this at all?
I don't think so.
The
I
older
always
guy?
lose those guys' names. You had Jake and Eddie. Those are the 2 guys.
I'm not a big fan of Eddie in this movie. I mean, Eddie's okay, but they're both lunatics and they talk a lot, and they kind of run over each other at times.
Nah, he's a little too Shakespearean.
Okay. Is he like Shakes in Punisher?
Well, actually, I wish he was more like Shakes in Punisher.
That would explain why he's into these weird food.
Yeah, so we should say the two comic characters that are always in an Ernest movie. In this movie, they work in the kitchen.
Oh,
And basically, every scene is they have this big, cheap-looking contraption that they throw random objects and some food in the one
Plastic
side,
stuff.
and you get goop, and gloop, and Tibetan
And-
ice cream out the other side.
and it's a never-ending quest to achieve a recipe called eggs erroneous, whatever that is. It apparently is
Yes.
flammable, and it clots very easily.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like them making them the mess hall chefs. I think that works for a camp movie. But again, this movie, it just feels like a bunch of Saturday Night Live skits tied together with a loose plot point. And so they don't really have a lot of interaction with anybody else. Not sure they do have any interaction with anybody else, actually.
What do you
They
think
could have filmed
about...
all those part off the campsite.
Does this movie have an effective villain for you? What do you think about Crater? Does he improve this movie in any way that if he was not who he was, it wouldn't quite be the same?
I think John Vernon phoned it in.
Vernon, is he a friend of Cherry? Is that where we got the whole idea of Hey Vern from?
Was he in another Ernest movie?
I don't recall, but it would have been a cameo if he was.
I'd expect it's more of a Disney connection. Like, I doubt that Iron Eyes Cody knew Cherry.
Yeah.
I think it was just the star power that they went with.
Boy, you think they paid Iron Eyes Cody the highest aside from Varney to be in this movie? Who do you think got second most money to be in the acting?
I mean, it's possible he made more than Varney up front,
Oh, man.
and
you're
Varney
probably
would have
right.
made it on the residuals.
Mm.
Ultimately, I would say Varney made more, but I don't know that he was guaranteed more.
Yeah, that's true.
So, you have the other thread throughout the movie is you have Crater sending his lawyer to harass Ironside's granddaughter, Nurse St. Cloud, and try to get her to talk her grandfather into selling the land so they can mine it for petrosite and make millions of dollars. And they're promising like 5% or 10% later on of the revenue back to the old Indian.
The lawyer is surprisingly not a bad guy in this movie, ultimately.
No. I mean, he's doing things by the book, you know. Who can own a tree? Who can own a rock?
He seems to be won over by the philosophy, or the focused worldview, as they call it, shaping and molding young minds into a focused worldview. The lawyer seems to be affected by that.
Yes. Shape the minds of the young white children to be Indian warriors.
Now, they say in the movie, I know you're going to come down hard on your cultural appropriationism. They say that St. Cloud and his granddaughter, they're apparently the last of whatever made up Indian tribe they are. So, in lieu of that, and I guess for whatever reason, Nurse St. Cloud doesn't have enough suitors or whatever, uh, Chief St. Cloud desires to pass on the traditions of his people to any kid, young brave, that wants to come to Camp Kikaki. Camp with a K. Camp Kikaki. There you go.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying, but like you gotta go all in. You're gonna train to be warriors, you better be throwing swords and axes and arrows at them. You don't see none of that.
They attempt homicide later in this movie, or manslaughter at the very least.
Hey, for what it's worth, actually, towards the beginning when all the campers get there, I need to find it. Tipton, the principal or whatever you call him.
Scoutmaster.
There you go. Let me see here. He says, "You kids will be tested just like the Indians so many years ago. For those who accept, there will be a ceremony of the blade, the stone, and the arrow." So maybe they were going to do some weird stuff.
Yo, that Chief St. Cloud, he's a bit eccentric there. He has no hesitation getting the boy soldiers. You know, it's an interesting little scene later in the movie when his granddaughter is rebuking him and everybody else. She's really the only one that has the right idea about how to fix the problem that Ernest got them into. But it's a lot more fun to see Ernest and Chief St. Cloud train their boy soldiers for war.
Yeah, so they got these kids they're doing the war makeup, and she's throwing a fit, and what did he say? I wrote that down too. This obviously.
Victoria Racina, I think is her name of the actress. She died about 2020.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, it is.
So Ernest says when she's disapproving, "They ain't gonna get this camp. They ain't gonna get this camp."
They ain't.
And that's when she drives off.
She solves that legal problem very quickly, I gotta say. I feel like she had 24 extra hours to do it. Maybe it was a Sunday or something. Maybe that's why she couldn't do anything the day before.
Yeah, so let's come back to that. Just tying up the plot. At some point, Crater comes and meets with the chief. He doesn't understand a word he's saying. At some point, realizes that. But then Ernest walks in, and he's doing Indian Sign Language, which I don't know if that exists.
Well, for his tribe. For his particular tribe, that is. Sure it does.
So the Crater manipulates Ernest into getting the chief's signature by acting as if he is an anti-pollution protest group.
Petition names.
Yes.
Which probably don't look like a legal contract, right?
No, most legal contracts don't have a list of names, which would be important for a petition. So Ernest may not be a reader. We'll just put it that way. And that's when...
That's fair.
At some point, Ernest, he gets beat up by the foreman, which I think might be the only time in an Ernest movie there's blood.
It's pretty good makeup job on him. They keep it for several scenes.
Yeah. So he gets beat up, and then the kids feel bad about making fun of him, and they come up with a plan to stop Crater, and basically involves with blowing up the entire construction site.
It's a great
scene. And that's where we get into the scene that we just talked about, where the nurse scolds them for taking kids to war. And the people contributing to this war are the misfit kids, Ernest, the two chefs, and I just want to call him Iron Eyes.
St. Cloud.
St. Cloud.
And the two other Pennington and Brooks guys who may or may not be the counselors.
Yeah, they're either the two counselors, or there was two large children who were picking fights with them throughout the movie. So it's one of them two. Stereotypical blank-faced white kids.
They stuck around on a four-wheeler when everybody else... I wonder about the whole evacuation process. I have questions about legally how quickly can you make an entire summer camp evacuate, and yet you leave a lot of people behind and nobody gets in trouble.
Buses. All right, so I was making a plot solution. I would say that Ernest was the one responsible for taking the delinquents back to the kid prison.
Okay, sure.
And he was still packing up.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that really works.
But again, who's responsible ultimately other than the janitor? It's kind of,
He's camp counselor now.
Legal releases, very questionable. They
bring this assault onto the construction crew. It doesn't appear anyone died, but you don't really know. Probably $1 million in damages back in '87.
Hey, let's talk about, before you go too far, I don't know if he's the foreman of the construction crew, but he strikes me as a former wrestler. The kind of build and the movements and the showmanship he has when he beats up Ernest and he has his rematch.
It's Lyle Alonso, and let me see here. He was an American professional football player. He played defensive end for the Raiders. Actually, not just the Raiders, the Broncos, the Browns, and then the Raiders. He did win a Super Bowl. 3-time All-Pro.
I wonder if he was on the same team as Carl Weathers with the Raiders.
I don't know. He died in 92.
Oh, no.
Age 43.
What happened? Heart attack? Drugs?
Let me see.
Man.
Might be CTE, but...
He looked terrific. I mean, it's kind of surprising there. He was dead in 5 years.
He was one of the first U.S. sports figures to admit to using anabolic steroids. Last year of his life, he had a brain tumor, which may or may not be tied to steroids.
Huh. That's unfortunate.
He thinks that his steroid abuse led to his brain tumor.
Huh.
So I don't know.
Do you think he was probably roiding during his playing career then? Even however...
He said he started taking them in 1969 and never stopped.
Wow. People just assumed steroids were not a problem back then, but...
So he started taking them when he was 20. So,
wow, man.
That's quite the sidetrack. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, now we learned more about Lyle Alzado?
Yeah.
Alzado. Okay.
Which I guess, a little bit before our time, but probably would have been pretty recognizable for most of the people watching this movie in 87, who were our age now.
Could be. So
this would be the equivalent of like Christian McAfee or McAfee.
What?
Wrong one.
That guy's a big star. Come on. McCafferty. Dadgummit. Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, what I'm saying is this guy won a Super Bowl and was 3-time All-Pro, so he would have been not quite on that level, but probably as recognizable. And he played for the Raiders.
You don't have near the marketing, especially in the 70s, for defensive ends as you do a star running back.
The equivalent.
He ain't no O.J. Simpson. Well, but
anyways, back to the movie. What would you think would happen if a janitor and 6 children and 2 chefs blow the hell out of a campsite?
I think it would make the local news that night. That's what I think.
You think someone would get arrested?
The police are there. I'm wondering about that very much.
So Crater gets upset about what's happening. He hears word, and he brings his hunting rifle, which they show him shooting things a couple times throughout the movie, and he's allegedly a good shot. So I don't know if they make that explicit enough throughout the movie to make this last scene work as well as they want. And he gets on site, and he points his gun at Ernest, and Ernest is wiggling around, and he shoots, and he misses, and everyone's shocked. So then he scurries up a few feet, takes aim again, shoots, misses.
They even do the crosshairs graphic on Ernest. I love that.
Yeah. So then he gets where he's like, I don't know, 8 feet away from him, if that. Aims, shoots, and misses. And at this point, Ernest declares victory by walking up to him, giggling in his face in his Ernest-like way, and sticking his finger into the barrel of the gun.
Very close to Looney Tunes territory. Very close to a Looney Tunes skit here.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he didn't pull the trigger. He obviously was prepared to kill him. So you have to think either Crater didn't really have the nerve to do it, and that's why he missed, or Ernest has proven himself to be an Indian warrior, and his courage has led the bullets to all miss.
Pure of heart, fear of the Great One, vague spirituality there, and courage, true courage. There you go. That's what Ernest possesses. That's why he was able to beat the troll.
Yeah, and the lawyer seems quite surprised that he missed those 3 shots and thankful that there's not a murder charge coming. And that's when Nurse St. Cloud rides up with her brigade of policemen. And
just 2 cars.
They basically, 2. They eventually arrest Crater for fraud.
See, the restraining order is what she secured from a judge, which would be a temporary thing until it could be investigated further.
Yeah.
Right?
But she gets it pretty quick.
Oh, that's why I was thinking, why didn't she do that the previous day? Because it sounds like they had a full 24 hours.
I think they had 48 hours.
They had a night, a full day, and a morning, is what it sounds like, to pull that off.
Yeah. And then Ernest gets rewarded. He's now a full-fledged counselor year-round, so the delinquents don't have to go back to their jail. They get to stay all the time. And he's also going to continue his regular duties, which ultimately ends up with the Camp Kickakee sign falling on him at the end.
And nobody giving a care.
Nope.
At least nobody got hurt.
This movie made $23.5 million, and I'm hearing that It is pretty good. It's to be $60 million today.
Yeah.
And apparently it ran at a Dixon drive-thru for 2 full years.
I believe it. I don't remember the Dixon drive-thru.
It was mentioned in the Nashville Scene article, so I assume it's true. I'll give them benefit of the doubt on that.
Yeah, I never remember a drive-thru at Dixon. I remember one at Waverly, which is much further west, but
So, one other interesting thing about this movie is you really don't have any Ernest playing other character parts.
It's the most grounded until it isn't, with the Indian spirituality.
He does voice 2 turtles, and it's unclear whether or not he's throwing his voice or the turtles are actually having a conversation.
So there are certain sayings that we learn about Ernest in this movie that's a little bit curious. He very much suggests he was a Vietnam veteran when he's taking the juvenile kids on their first hike.
Yeah, but he may make some allusions to that kind of stuff in other movies too. I'm not entirely sure about that.
When he gets the first shot from Nurse St. Cloud, he gets several. He confesses to crimes that he may or may not have committed, which may tie into your theory of him being a Dr. Otto connection there. He confesses to have kidnapped the Lindbergh baby back in 1930-something, and he confesses to being, in fact, Joseph Mengele, the Nazi angel of death Holocaust architect. That's some rough stuff in Ernest's past.
Yeah, he also says he's got nails in his hands, and he's never eaten a quiche.
And he says that if he were to put his 2 hands in his own pockets, he would be convicted for concealed deadly weapons.
Yep. Then he got his butt whooped.
Ooh, by the guy on steroids.
Very quickly.
So. This guy on steroids, man.
You know, Varney's a funny looking dude. He's got muscular arms to some length, but they're so small, they don't look like they're strong. Like they're lean.
You look at his his arms there.
He's a smoker.
That's
He's
true.
a chain smoker.
That's true, man.
But he doesn't look like a real slight character. Like he looks like he may be, I'm not sure what his height was. He may be 200 pounds.
Not that I really cared to, but I don't ever remember seeing a photo of Jim Varney bare chest. I don't care to, but it's like a lot of people, you just see those out there, but you kind of wonder how ripped he was.
Let me see if I can.
Oh, you Googling this? You knucklehead. Goodness.
All right. Let's see here. Is this actually Jim Varney? Jim Varney shirtless boxing a kangaroo. I don't know if that's really him. Looks like AI to me.
It better be. Boxing a kangaroo. It's hard to beat it.
AI. His face don't look right. I'm going to take a picture to send it to you, though. Everyone needs to Google Jim Varney shirtless. I'm using Microsoft Bing just because that's what the default is. And you'll get him.
That's why you get weird stuff.
Kangaroo. Yeah, I think it's openart.ai. I didn't Google anything about a kangaroo, just to be clear. All right, if I scroll down, I get some more realistic pictures.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's way too much AI on Jim Varney here.
That is weird, man. The AI Jim Varney fascination suggests they're trying to bring him back in artificial intelligence form.
So, speaking of political incorrectness, what do you think of Eyes Cody?
The great Sicilian American crying Indian. He became a national icon in 1970 with "Keep America Beautiful" campaign. You talking about how he plays this part? You talking about this movie?
I'm just about him in general.
Oh.
So apparently, he had this ad and it won 2 awards or whatever. And apparently, according to one source, it helped reduce litter by 88% across 38 states.
It was right up there with the "Give the Coke, Teach the World to Smile" Coca-Cola ad as like the most famous ads of everything before 1990, most likely.
Yeah. So the announcer on the video of the commercial, William Conrad, said, "People start pollution, people can stop it." And you have the crying Sicilian American Indian, and it did good. Apparently, he pretended to be an Indian his entire life once he got typecast, and he got outed in '96, but denied it
by his sister-in-law, right? According to Wikipedia.
Yeah, and then he died at 94 from mesothelioma in L.A. Lots of Indians living in L.A. And then, according to this site, before his death, he wrote this comment. I'm really tempted to read this in an Indian voice, but I feel like that might be wrong. Make me ready to stand before you with clean and straight eyes. When life fades, as the fading sunset, may our spirits stand before you without shame. So maybe it's the example of you say the lie enough, eventually you come to believe the lie. So
Elizabeth Warren, right? She's however much.
I'm not.
I think I'm 1/6. I think I'm 1/16th Indian myself, which would I can't tell you anything more about that, but that would make me.
I think everyone in Tennessee claims to be 1/16th Indian.
Well, they can't anymore because they had kids, so you can't keep pitching that.
Hey, were you actually from Tennessee or Michigan?
No, I'm from Tennessee, but both of my parents were born in Michigan, but their parents were born in Tennessee. That's how.
Okay, so they came back to the promised land. Gotcha.
Yeah, once everybody retired from the auto industry, you go back to Tennessee.
Yeah. Okay. So Iron Eyes, he started playing Indian characters in 1927. First film was Back to God's Country. He was uncredited in that one, but he appeared in looks like about 50 films and probably about 50 television roles too. So he made a career out of it, and this was probably his. Let me see here.
Last film credit.
Next to last. Well, next to last. He made a cameo in Spirit of 76 in 1990.
They used the TV footage, most likely. Just the old commercial. Last real screen credit. In life, professionally, and personally, he is an effective actor. He plays the part that he needs to play. That's what I'll say about that. Man, we are so off track with this movie.
I don't know if I have much else to say about this movie, though, so I'm good with it.
Yeah, we got to talk about the music, right? Everybody remembers the music to this film.
Talk about the music while I look this up.
The Keisters were big in this movie. You had Alice Keister, who is credited with writing most of this movie's original music. The lyrics to the music. And then you have Shane and Aaron Keister, who do a lot of the actual music. Then you have a variety of performers. Now, the one everybody remembers is indeed, Gee, I'm Glad It's Raining. But another song that I had forgotten how much of a banger it is called Brave Hearts, in the plural, 2 words. And it's performed by Gary Chapman. And it's got some quality to it. I thought they just used a popular music track for that, but it was written by the Keisters for this movie, and Gary Chapman really goes into it. They use it when they're preparing to defend the camp, and they play it again on the credits. There are several other compositions here that I don't even remember them from the music, the film at all.
The only 2 that I recall like being formal songs, you can tell they're real songs, is the Raining song, where Ernest is singing, "I'm awfully glad it's raining because no one sees your teardrops when it pours."
Indeed.
And then the song at the end by Gary Chapman, which I was going to ask you because I didn't get a chance to look it up, if Bravehearts was already a song of his or if they wrote it for this.
Well, whether it was written specifically for this movie, it was written by the same people who did the rest of the movie's soundtrack. So I assume it was all tied together. This is a pretty good little original soundtrack that makes me wonder about maybe I should track this down somehow if it ever got released on anything. Ernest Goes to Camp.
I can't imagine that it got a release.
I don't recall it in the credits. You usually see that the last thing listed, like soundtrack available from RCA Records or whatever, but I don't recall that.
And it looks like Gary P. Talk's Turtle Rodeo supported all the turtles, or supplied the turtles.
Are you sure it's Gary? I read the DVD as Gay. Gay Petarch's Turtle Rodeo. Wow.
I wonder if it's still around.
You just Google shirtless Jim Varney for the Gay Petarch Turtle Rodeo.
All right, so they don't have. There's a lot about gay rodeos, but I don't see any gay turtle rodeos. So
don't pump that in.
Maybe I'll put Tennessee at the end.
Yeah, don't type in near me.
So this is a. There is a C. Period. Gay Peacock, who I think is spelled the same way, who lives in Tennessee. He's known for landscape painting.
All right.
So it's possible that he's transitioned from turtle rodeos to painting. I don't know.
Oh, man.
Follow up on that.
There's a lot of turtles in this movie. They parachute at the end of this.
Do you think those turtles are real? In 1987, you never know, right?
There are real turtles in them. You're talking about specifically the shot where they're parachuting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of real turtles in this movie. And there's a shot where they're parachuting down and they're attacking by biting all the construction workers. And they're snapping turtles, so they would have a good grip. So I'm not ruling out the idea that these were real.
Oh, man.
But mostly because it's 1987.
There was nothing in the credits about American Humane Association or no animals were harmed, but
there was also no, turtle designer or whatever. They looked pretty good. They did look identical, so it makes me wonder about that too. But I don't know. Lost to the history of the world, not recorded. Were turtles harmed or parachuted in the making of this movie?
The world may never know.
And can you parachute a turtle with that size parachute?
Oh. I think I was inspired by this movie when I don't remember what the toy was called, but the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Pogo Copter or something like that. The turtle parachute toys. You kind of put the turtle in a parachute and toss him off something high and see if it catches.
I'm sure that worked well. Maybe once.
Yeah, I don't remember it breaking, but it was kind of a fun thing. It was a tie between this movie and my fascination with Ninja Turtles. They were connected, at least.
So one thing that was cut out of the film, you mentioned earlier, and I meant to go back to it earlier, was Disney did not like the idea that Ernest would have a romantic relationship with the nurse, and they cut it out.
That was written in? Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Originally?
Yeah. Don't know if it ever got filmed. It makes you wonder if they filmed it, showed it to them, and they didn't like it, so they got rid of it.
There's only one Ernest movie that I can think of. Maybe I'm forgetting those direct-to-videos where he has any kind of romantic arc, and it's in Goes to Jail with his coworker lady. The only comment he makes in this movie is when he's having the makeshift picnic with her and her grandfather, and he says, "This is the life. The great outdoors, a beautiful woman, plenty of food, and fire ants." And then immediately transitions into a ridiculous. So he's very complimentary to her, but at no point did I ever think there was a romantic connection between the two, because I viewed them more as coworkers that were just happy to have that relationship as it was.
Yeah, Ernest has always kind of given off an asexual vibe, which he hangs out with children so much, you almost would like him to have a few romantic interests in at least one or two movies.
So you're saying if this was the 1950s, they probably would have forced the romantic subplot in to make...
Well, I mean, they probably forced it in today too.
Okay.
Ernest movies are, they're unique because they're going after, especially the movies, are going after like the under 13 crowd. So that crowd doesn't really care one way or the other. The commercials were real popular with the like people in their late 30s and 40s who could spend money.
I noticed that Ernest had a poster of a sexy nurse in his quarters there.
I think he's had a similar poster in other movies too. I did see one. Did I write this down? There was a movie poster I wanted to look up and see if it was a real movie. Let's see here. My stomach's growling.
You need to go eat.
Yeah, I eat a little bit. I'll eat some Tibetan powdered eggs like Ernest did.
Oh, that nasty stuff. Eggs erroneous.
Never did master it.
Oh.
But did create quite the weapon.
Flammable. Highly flammable. Combustible.
All right. San Francisco Docks. Let me see if that's a real movie.
I missed that.
It was at the end when he was packing up his room.
His room or one of the other camper rooms?
His room. All right.
Okay.
It was from 1940.
Wow.
It starred Burgess Meredith. Hey.
Oh. Classy. I like it.
Irene Hervey, Barry Fitzgerald, Raymond Walburn, Robert Armstrong, and Lewis Howard.
That's our King Kong Robert Armstrong. Is that it?
I think so. I don't have a picture. So.
Huh.
When his sweetheart, barmaid Kitty Tracy, is annoyed by a customer, longshoreman Johnny Barnes slugs the guy. The man is later found dead. Johnny is tried for murder and convicted. Kitty and a priest, Father Cameron, believe in Johnny's innocence and search for a way to exonerate him. They discover Monte March, a prisoner who's escaped Alcatraz, is the real killer, being helped by his wife Frances, fleeing from the law. March is apprehended, and Johnny's set free.
Sounds like that's a preview of Ernest Goes to Jail. A little bit Easter egg, hinting at what's to come later.
Maybe.
I gotta say, a romantic subplot would have dogged this movie down quite a bit. I'm glad they didn't put that plot in there.
Yeah, like I said, Disney weren't too keen on that.
Huh.
And this was the first of the 4 Disney movies, and made good money. And then Saves Christmas was the next year.
88, right? This was 87.
Yeah.
Was this a summer movie?
It came out in May, so they got the timing right. Oh, and then Santa's movie came out, I think it was Thanksgiving time the next year. So they were smart on their timing. You didn't get Saves Christmas in March or Goes to Camp in November. So,
of course, you can go to jail any time of the year, so it didn't matter when they put that out.
Well, you got any other thoughts on Ernest Goes to Camp?
There's one thing I'd misremembered about how this movie plays out when Ernest saved Moose from drowning, in my memory, that's when all the other camp kids warmed up to him. But that doesn't happen. They continue to really mistreat him up until the nurse scolds them for everything.
Yeah. No, he wins Moose over, but yeah, the other kids, until they realize that Ernest is their only friend that they've had at the camp, and they just keep being mean to him. Even then, I'm not convinced they're really doing it for the right reasons. But
what they wanted was a hero. What he needed was a friend. How long? I wonder a little bit on the timeline on this. How long do you think the juvenile delinquent kids were originally supposed to stay at the camp? 2 weeks? A month? 2 or 3 months?
I mean, most camps would be like 2 weeks at the most.
Yeah, that's what I imagine.
And I get the feeling they've been there for about a week. I feel like when all heck breaks loose.
And so it's like, well, do you go back to the juvenile center now, or do you wait a week? And that's kind of the way I was looking at it. And then they bring Ernest in as a year-round counselor, so I'm kind of wondering what that even means. If they plan to go,
lives on the camp. I think Ernest lives on a campsite with the 6 children, the 6 little boys.
That's kind of weird.
Probably better not to make a sequel at that point. They could have made Ernest Goes to Camp Part 2. He gets registered.
Man, you had to go there. Best not to think about.
Yeah. So, what are we gonna rate this out of?
Snapping turtles, rodeo turtles, parachuting rodeo turtles.
I think snapping turtles. So I'm trying to remember what I gave Dr. Otto.
You gave it a 3, well.
Okay. I gave maybe a 2.5 to 3.
Yeah, you rounded up, I think, on Dr. Otto.
Okay. I can't go above 3 for this movie. I enjoyed it, but it's not even in the top probably 3 Ernest movies. It's the worst of the Disney movies. I'm not saying it's bad, but it doesn't compare to Christmas, Jail, or Scared Stupid.
There's very little, let's say, motivation to keep watching. All the scenes are fun, but it's sort of like, well, I can go back and watch the scene when I want to. Do I need to sit through the whole thing to feel like I've got a big character arc? And despite that, I'm tempted to give it 4 turtles, but I'll hold off just because of the odd pacing. The music really elevates this movie. If I was to give it 4 turtles, it would be because of the strengths of the music. But I'm going to come in at 3.5 turtles, so I'm sorry I cut a turtle in 2. Feel bad about that.
Yeah, so and I want to keep all the turtles whole, so I'll pick whole numbers. I'm going to go 2 turtles.
Okay.
But I don't want that to sound like I didn't enjoy the movie. I did enjoy it. You can enjoy something and admit that it's probably not very good. And I think this falls into if this was a television show or a made-for-television movie, or a direct-to-video, I should say, then I'd be inclined to give it another turtle. But as a theatrical release, it's funny, but it's really stupid without a real plot. And I'm not sure that we get invested in any of the children characters.
Oh, I can't even
other than
remember
Moose.
their name. But
the fact that we can't remember if the 2 bigger kids are counselors or the bullies says a lot about how much these characters mean to you.
There's too many in the movie.
So I'm going to go with 2.
You could definitely tell Jim Varney was trying to be more dramatic than anything he had ever done before that I'm aware of.
Yeah. All right. Well, I gave it 2. You cut a turtle in half, gave it 3.5.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works out next time. So the next one we're doing is Jail. Is that right?
That's what we got left as far as our theatrical. That and rides again, whether we get to all of them or not, in sooner or later.
Yeah. So next week we'll be back with Ernest Goes to Jail. Give us likes on YouTube. Follow us, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your stuff. Got some recent additions. The Year Without Santa Claus really took off on YouTube. What can I say?
Yeah. I'd rather watch this than Year Without Santa Claus.
That must be an underrated Christmas movie. It's got 5 times the views of Rudolph.
Really? People really into Year Without Santa Claus. That surprises me.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.